Well, folks, I guess it's 6:30, so we should get our meeting started. I think just about everybody's in from the parking lot. Pretty good group. It sounds to me like it's going to be a very interesting meeting. I haven't been filled in on many details at all, so I'm looking forward to it just as much as everybody else. But, well, as our tradition is, we like to stand up and turn around and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Well, like I say, it's going to be an interesting meeting. One quick thing I wanted to mention, very lately, Senate Bill number 527 was just introduced. Did anybody notice on the news there this guy, I think he's in the Upper Peninsula or northern Michigan anyway, I stepped forward and decided to be a foster parent. Then the government comes in and says, you know, you can't have any guns in your house. It's dangerous for the kiddies. Well, that's a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, this law would spell things out that it is okay for a person to lawfully possess a firearm and ammunition while they're being a foster parent. It does stipulate that there should be safe storage of guns and ammunition if they're not attended to by.
I haven't read all the way through that bill yet, but I was talking to Tom Lambert today, President of Michigan Open Carry. I know he's been here a couple times before. He has a few concerns with some technical language in there. So we're kind of working with the NRA to try and smooth that out and make sure we get it right before it goes all the way through. It's a good bill. We just need to make sure we get some of that language correct. We've already got enough convoluted gun laws on the books in Michigan. We want to make sure we get it right the first time.
Yeah, it's recently introduced, all right?
Yeah.
It's a preliminary language, but the gist of it is to make sure that people that, I think they're really stepping up to the plate to be foster parents, and there's a great need for more, but gee whiz, to have to lock up all your guns and not be able to carry even if you're licensed, that's kind of silly. So it's just getting started to rectify that problem. Well, let's see, I'm looking around, don't see any of our legislators today. So, like I say, I'm anxious to see what Joel's got to say. So I guess I'll just turn it right over to you, Joel.
All right.
There's one more coming in. That's
Second
right.
Amendment Foundation's also got a lawsuit going in regard to that foster parent thing as well.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
is that good enough where it's at right there? I figure as long as we're doing this, I may as well make double use of it and go Facebook Live on
Hey, cool.
my website, right?
Yeah.
Or on my Facebook. All right, hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I appreciate being here at the Calhoun County Gun Owners Association meeting. And we're going to talk tonight about a tale of two trials. I had the privilege of working this summer as an expert consultant on a murder trial. This all came about when I was down at the NRA annual meetings. I was hanging out with some very prominent firearms attorneys here in the state of Michigan. Probably some of the most prominent ones. Dean Greenblatt for one, Jim Mikowski, and then Terry Johnson, who's been here with you guys before. And Jim said, hey, I got a trial coming up, and he said, we got to help this guy. He said, he said, I heard you today say that you'd been an expert witness before. I'm like, yeah. He's like, so you've been certified in court? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, well, what do you think about this? Is this something you could do? I'm like, yeah, I probably could. He's like, I'll be in contact. So gives me a call, and he kind of gives me the details of the case, and I'm like, man, we're a little weak here on imminence. I'm not real sure that, how good we are here. And then I had the opportunity to go all the way through it. So essentially what happened was this. On November 30th, 2015, it was a Monday, Mr. Richard Sanderson, who is the defendant, was called over to his mother's house to visit with his stepdad's wife at the time, or still his wife, I assume, and they had a friend there with him from Canada. So his stepdad is divorced from his mom. The stepdad is the father of his brother, Jermaine. Got this? Okay. So I just make sure we all got it there. So he's going over there, visit with the family. He couldn't go over the day before when he was asked to, because the day before his wife just had their third child. So he's got his 4-year-old at the time. I'm sorry, 2-year-old at the time. She's not in school yet, but his oldest son is. So he goes over to the house. He'd just gone to his work to put his brand new baby daughter on their insurance. And then he went over to the house to see his mom, who's divorced from his stepdad, and the rest of the family. They were celebrating because Jermaine had just beat a case, as they said in the court. He had actually been accused or charged with armed robbery. They dropped it to just strong armed robbery because they couldn't find the weapon. And they ended up giving the young man probation. Jermaine was part of a gang and basically was just, look, he wasn't a very nice person. Frankly, probably deserved a dirt nap. Just wish he'd been at the hands of a rival gang member. This was downtown Detroit. We're on the other side of probably, I think we're on the other side of 4 Mile. I went down there, actually visited the location a couple weeks before the trial. I got there early to make sure I knew where I was going, and then I went around the corner to a Burger King. And as I sat at the Burger King, I was reviewing some research, and after about 45 minutes, I kept watching, and I suddenly looked down, and I went, I'm white. Right? It's one of those times where as a majority of the culture, it was the first time, it wasn't the first time, it was about the third time in my entire life I'd ever had to go, I had to think about the color of my skin. That doesn't happen to us as white folks very often. It happened to me there. Quite frankly, I was staying at a really rich hotel that week, and to be honest with you, I got treated better downtown than I did at the rich hotel, so I was among friends. At any rate, it was about time to go visit this nice lady, and I went into the house, and she let me go through the house. It's Richard and Jermaine's mother, and she's not totally unsympathetic with her oldest boy, right? She still lost her youngest son, but she wasn't unsympathetic. So I went through the house and reviewed the house. Kind of looked at the scene and got an idea of where things were at. I had sent my credentials and all of my certifications over to the lawyer. He sent them over to the prosecutor. On the first day of the trial, she argued that she never received that. Welcome to Wayne County. Yep. They argued it for about 2 or 3 hours, and finally the lawyers just gave up and said, look, we're not going to argue it anymore. Instead of using you as an expert witness, we'll use you as an expert consultant. Worked out pretty good because everything I would have said as an expert witness, I got her witnesses to say. The week before the trial, we had found some Fox 2 News video footage. That Fox 2 News video footage showed the girlfriend of the deceased showed her from the rear side, and she was jumping up and down, crying, screaming, but plainly in her waistline, you could see a firearm. I look at it, I know it's a firearm. Just about any of you that have dealt, I know Jim, if Jim looked at it, would go, oh, that's a gun, right? I mean, we know enough, those that deal it in the culture enough go, yep, they're carrying. Because we look for that, right? So that was plainly evident. So we had that video. We were going to use it at some point in the trial. Eventually, we get the trial to start. Now, this man went through 2 trials. Mr. Richard Sanderson went through 2 trials. The first time around, it was $25,000 to get him out of jail. They managed to scrape together his $25,000 to get him out of jail.
That's cash bond.
Yeah, cash bond. He no longer had enough money for an attorney, so he got a court-appointed attorney.
Not Dean Greenblatt, though.
Not Dean Greenblatt. It was a court-appointed attorney in Wayne County. This court-appointed attorney was so bad, I kid you not, in the first trial, this is how it started out. Mr. Sanderson, I'd like to talk to you about the events of November 30th, 2015. And our defendant went, okay. He said, and that was a day in which there was a mourning, correct?
You mean like AM versus PM?
Yeah.
I assume.
Second question, I kid you not. And that was also a day in which there was an afternoon, correct?
Sounds logical.
I'm like, do we really need to establish the facts for this courtroom that this is an additional day since the first day of creation where the morning and the evening formed the first day? I don't know what the purpose of those questions are. Perhaps Mr. Sullivan can help us out. Not a clue, do you?
Just here to watch.
Yeah. I didn't have any idea either when I read it. I was like, what? That's how bad it was. It took, I kid you not, for a capital murder trial, it took them from 9 in the morning till noon on the first trial to pick a jury. It's not very long to pick a jury for a capital murder trial. It took them then from noon that day till noon the following day to complete the entire trial. Same number of witnesses, except there was one more prosecutorial witness in the second trial. It then took 2.5 days for the jury on the first trial. 2.5 days they went into deliberations. There was screaming, yelling, maybe even gnashing of teeth, I don't know, but they could hear them screaming and yelling outside the deliberation room. You got to get pretty loud to hear outside the deliberation room. At the end of 2.5 days, they sent notice back to the judge and said, we're hung. We are not coming to a conclusion. They were not hung 9-3, 9 guilty, 3 innocent. They were hung 9-3. 9 wanted second-degree murder. 3 of them wanted manslaughter. It hung the jury. The second trial, it took literally a day and a half for voir dire. Selecting the jury was a day and a half. It got down to the end, and there was not necessarily the greatest representation on the jury, but we started out with 40 jurors, and we're looking back at what's left and going, do we stick with what we've got? Do we try and dismiss one and hope that we, luck of the draw, what one do we get next, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you've been in jury trials before, John, and look back and go, right? I mean, jury selection's huge, right? And you got to consider you're in Wayne County, right? Which means you got 40 people that weren't smart enough to get out of jury duty. Right? And so, once again, that's why I encourage everybody here on Facebook, here on my Facebook, as well as here, look, if you get jury duty, as gun owners, don't try and get out of that. Go to jury duty. We need honest, good, law-abiding, logical folks that can evaluate the evidence. If you don't, then you're leaving yourselves in the hands of a judicial system that's not always quite fair. Okay? So make sure you do your jury duty. It's probably one of the highest duties that you as an American outside of military service can do. Make sure you go do jury duty. I don't think we got a terrible jury. I think we got a pretty decent jury. I think they want to do a really, really good job. So here's what happened. On November 30th, 2015, Mr. Sanderson ends up going to the house, and they're having this celebratory event. Essentially, Jermaine has gotten a second chance at life. He had robbed a girl at gunpoint for her iPhone. They couldn't find the gun, therefore they charged Jermaine they plea bargained it down, and he got 2 years probation. They get over there, their introductions are done. He hasn't, Richard hasn't seen his stepfather in a long time. He's got his 2-year-old little girl with him. She goes and plays in the living room, and this is a really, really small house. It's probably more than 850, 900 square feet. There's kind of a living room area, a dining area, a kitchen. It's got a partition wall in there, but it's all one place where you can kind of circle around. And then there's a stairwell, there's a couple of back bedrooms. And so Richard ends up eventually talking to Jermaine at the behest of everybody else, and they start talking to Jermaine. Before that has happened, the stepfather's introduced Richard. Look how great my stepson is. He's done such a great job with life. He's over in Macomb County, got out of Detroit. He's bought a house. He has a wife. He's got 3 beautiful children. And he goes on and on for about 5 or 10 minutes. Well, in the meantime, Richard's looking over at his brother, and his brother's just kind of hanging his head. You can obviously see how that's going to make a son feel this is his own flesh and blood father, and the stepfather's bragging on the stepson, creating a little bit of tension there. And Richard is about 15 years older than his younger brother. He's about 38. His brother's 23 at the time. His mother has constantly called Richard to come over and talk to Jermaine. Come over and talk to Jermaine. Mentor him. Give him some guidance. And Richard has always tried to get his brother to go in the right direction. He's 23 years old. He's still living at home. He's never had a job. But he's always got money. You do the math. It's not the first time he's been seen using violence. It's not the first time that his brother has seen him with a firearm. Right? But still his brother. At any rate, as they get done talking, they start talking to Jermaine, and Jermaine says he's going to fix up his car and get his car fixed up and this, that, and the other thing, at which point Richard just can't help himself. He's going, what are you going to fix up the car for? The next thing you know, you're going to start driving. You start driving, you get pulled over, you violate your probation. You don't even have a driver's license right now. And then you end up going to jail. This is a second chance for you. Why would you destroy that second chance? You've been handed a gift. And eventually Jermaine just can't stand it anymore. He's getting angry, starts slamming things around. And Richard looks at his watch, sees that it's 3 o'clock. He's got 45 minutes at this point to get back over to Macomb County, which I don't know if you know anything about driving in Detroit. That's a drive, right? It's like 20 miles and it's like 45 minutes. It's inconceivable to us how short a distance and how long it takes in Detroit to drive stuff. So he's like, I need to grab my little girl and get out of here and go get my son and pick him up. He goes into the living room to pick up his little girl. At this point, Jermaine has circled around the kitchen, comes up behind him pretty quick. Richard's got no idea what's going on, but he's seen him exercise violence before, not just against strangers, but this kid has actually threatened family members with violence before. Richard is carrying a firearm. He's carrying a firearm, one, because he's a CPL holder, and as most of us, we just about carry all the time. But in addition, he'd been encouraged to carry by the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, the very prosecutorial office that's now prosecuting him, because he was actually a witness to a murder downtown in Detroit. And they said, hey, you probably ought to be carrying. That's why he got it in the first place. So his brother comes up behind him fast. All he sees is the movement, and he reaches down and grabs his firearm, and he just pulls real quick. So you know his brother's come up behind him with a knife or anything else. Turns around, sees that his brother just has fists. So he replaces his firearm back in the holster. His brother at that point says, with lots of expletives, of course, what, you think you're going to kill me? You ain't no gangster. You ain't hard, blah, blah, blah. At this point, the women in the house have moved to where Jermaine is at, and they're trying to hold him back. And Jermaine he wants to fight. And Richard's stepfather has his arms held behind him and is kind of holding him back. Now, he's not really holding Richard back because Richard doesn't want to fight. He's going, look, calm down. Don't be so angry. Jermaine's yelling and screaming. All this kind of stuff. As he does so, he breaks away from the ladies. Pushes his mother into the kitchen. His sister runs up the stairs, his girlfriend runs up the stairs, and Jermaine gets to Richard and cold cocks him. He's got his arms held behind his back, and Richard gets cocked right across his face. So much so that it leaves a cut right across his cheek. At this point, he's knocked loose from his stepfather's grip, and he can feel Jermaine going for his gun. Richard gets to his gun first and pulls. Lack of trigger discipline, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of struggle going on, a shot gets cut off. It hits above the door frame of the bathroom downstairs, at which point Jermaine starts running upstairs. Keep in mind, the girlfriend has already gone upstairs, and Richard knows that's where Jermaine keeps his firearm at. Richard steps to the bottom of the stairs, and we hear a little bit more interaction going on. You ain't going to shoot me. You ain't going to kill me. All the expletives that go with that. At some point, Jermaine turns to his right-hand side. The stairs go up, and then there's a couple steps go up to the left. And he turns to his side, and he's reaching. Richard doesn't know what he's... pretty much assumes he's reaching for his gun. Now, would Richard have gotten out of there if he could? Yes, but he had a 2-year-old little girl there. And in all commotion, he didn't know where his little girl was at. The only thing in Richard's mind was, if he comes down with that scatter gun, he's going to shoot my little girl. He's going to shoot me, and my little girl's going to get injured or killed. At this point, Richard took his Springfield XD-45, loaded with critical defense, Hornady critical defense, and he shot. As Jermaine was reaching for the firearm, he believed at that point it was imminent. He shot twice. He caught him once right here in the lower abdomen, just to the rear, and he caught him once behind the scapula, the left scapula. This one went on an angle up through here, cut the aorta, and Jermaine was done right there. At that point, he ends up calling the police. And he says, hey, I need an ambulance here right away. I need police. He said, my brother hit me and I shot him. Was that accurate? Did his brother hit him? Mm-hmm. Okay. And did he shoot his brother? Probably not the best thing to say on 911 though, right? Makes it sound like what? My brother hit me, I was angry, I shot him. Probably could have given a few less details. Police, ambulance, and there's been a shooting. That's it. Now, just because my brother hit me and I shot him didn't mean that was all that happened. Right? There's a lot of other details. Okay? The point was, he didn't need to give any details. Should have kept his mouth shut and just been done with it. It ended up being about a 15, 16-minute phone call. Obviously, the job of 911 dispatch is to do what? Keep you on the phone. They want to keep you talking, don't they? Now, you're under pressure, stress, and duress. How do you think you're going to react if you think you almost got killed, 1, and 2, you ended up shooting your brother?
You spill your guts.
Yeah, it's not good. Okay? It took the girlfriend 2 minutes before she called 911, the girlfriend of Jermaine. Brielle Brandy was her name. It took 2 minutes for Brielle to call the cops. I don't know what she's doing in that 2 minutes while she's upstairs. At the same moment, Brielle doesn't do anything to render first aid to the boyfriend. Agreed, she's about 19, 20 years old. Maybe she doesn't know anything. Okay? The mother gets up there. She puts pressure on the wound. I believe, in my heart of hearts, that Brielle believed that Jermaine was going to be okay, but she needed to cover for him. So she spirits the gun out of the house. We have the footage. Right? I can see it clearly. So, we send this footage to the prosecutor the week before. With her first witness, she calls Officer Tonti to the stand. Goes through the whole thing with Officer Tonti arriving on the scene. And the cops, I'll tell you what, afterward I got the chance to talk to the courtroom deputy. And the courtroom deputy told me that every cop in that room that was sequestered before they were put on the stand, were in favor of Mr. Sanderson being acquitted. They were on his side. They believed afterward, seeing all the evidence in the case, that he was innocent. The prosecutor, Kim Worthy, and the assistant prosecutors in that office, they hate guns. Kim Worthy hates gun owners. She wasn't letting this go. That's the importance of local elections. They matter. What prosecutor you have sitting here in Calhoun County matters. We've had prosecutors here that not only wouldn't have been in favor of concealed pistol licensees, but prosecutors who wouldn't even clear officers in on-duty shootings. Okay? So it really does. Elections matter. At any rate, we get Officer Tonti up there. As the assistant prosecutor gets down to the end of her questioning, she says, I'd like to introduce People's Exhibit 42. Our defense attorney immediately goes, Your Honor, never mind, withdrawn. Because that was our video. We're thinking she's trying to steal our thunder, which is exactly what she was trying to do. She was trying to she knew that video was going to get used at some point in the trial. She was trying to introduce it before we got to and steal our thunder. And Terry Johnson leaned over to Jim Mikowski, the other lawyer, and Jim was sitting second chair. He leaned over to the lawyer, and he leaned over to Jim, and Terry says, It's about to be Christmas in July. So she brings up the video. And Officer Tanti identifies everybody in the video, and all it was identification purposes. There was no reason to bring that video in. She just wanted him to identify Brielle Brandy in there. And in the end, make it so we weren't the first ones to introduce the video. We get up there, and Terry starts to, and I want to tell you right now, having seen Terry Johnson in action, I'm going to tell you he is probably one of the star lawyers I've ever had the opportunity to see in action in a courtroom. He is phenomenal. He thinks quick on his feet. He is good at asking questions, and he is excellent at leading witnesses exactly where he wants to go without asking leading questions, because I know that's objectionable, right? But he asks questions in such a manner, it takes him right where he wants him to go. So we asked Officer Tanti, we got all the way down to the video, and then we started asking about the video. And suddenly we get recessed for an hour because the prosecution objects to the officer pointing out what can be plainly seen to the jury. And she cites some Supreme Court cases regarding witness identification. The problem is this isn't about identification of witnesses. You know, if you've got a grainy photo, the officer's not supposed to say, well, this is, if you look right here and here and here, this is so-and-so. Jury can identify that for themselves. Either they can see it or they can't see it. You can't point that out and say this is so-and-so. But when you're talking about expert witness type testimony and identifying what this behavior is and what an object might be, that's an entirely different story. And the judge ruled in our favor. I got to tell you, this judge was very sympathetic to this defendant. She ruled in our favor every single time. Everything we wanted, everything we objected to, we got it. So we put the video back up. Obviously, you can see her jumping up and down. Obviously, you can see a firearm in her waistband. And, you know, and I don't know, how many of you notice, like, young ladies and that kind of stuff, they wear some of that tighter form-fitting clothing? Not all.
Don't look that Davis.
Right, and that's good, right? We shouldn't be, but I've never been upset about that myself. Nonetheless, how many of you notice that because there's not a lot of place to really attractively fit a cell phone, a lot of them will carry it in their back pocket? You ever notice that? Yeah, absolutely. So at first we said, you know, I want you to look at this. And we said, he asked Officer Tanti, he said, so how long have you worked for the Detroit Police Department? And he said, 23 years. Very good. And have you always been a patrol officer? No, sir. Well, what'd you used to do? He said, it was plain clothes. Plain clothes? Sir, would you mind describing for the jury what plain clothes means? Oh, I worked undercover, and basically our job was to do drug interdiction and essentially, you know, look for drugs and try and get illegal weapons off the street. Oh, it was it? How fantastic. So we showed him the video, and he said, and if you saw this, what would you say that, in fact, he said, let me ask the question a different way. If you saw this individual in this manner right here, what would you do? He said, I'd stop for CCW. He said, well, what's CCW? Carrying concealed weapons. It's a criminal charge, 5-year felony. I believed, based on what I'm seeing, that I would probably pull over and check to make sure it's not a firearm. He said, so you're reasonably certain that that's probably a firearm? He goes, it really looks like it to me. And he said, so is there any chance it could be something else, like a cell phone? He goes, well, it could be. So we played the frames a few frames further. He said, what's that right there in her right hand? Her cell phone. Oh, well, I guess it's not her cell phone, is it? We're thinking, holy cow, what a great way to start the trial. We ended up going through, we went through witness after witness, we went through, the coroner got up there, And we made sure that we grilled the coroner on blood tests, and there was THC, marijuana in his system, plus a few other things we weren't exactly sure what all was in there. But even Jermaine's own mother said that he was acting crazy, out of his mind, never seen him like this before, never seen him this angry before, agitated. And we asked him, can that cause agitation? Can it cause, maybe paranoia? And yeah, and I know some people that have done marijuana where that symptom, it's not often, most of the time you're pretty chill. You're like, I don't know that from experience. It's not on the record.
Just observation.
Just observation, right? Usually you're pretty chill on that stuff. Some people it causes paranoia. There's different symptoms that can happen. And by all accounts, this kid was smoking it day in, day out. I mean, his mom said every time I came home from work after working third shift, I had to fumigate the place because it smelled terrible. She wasn't even allowed upstairs. Her own testimony was, I wasn't allowed upstairs. And the lawyer said, you weren't allowed upstairs. He said, do you own the house? She goes, no, I rent. He goes, is there something in your lease agreement that says you can't go upstairs? She goes, no, my son wouldn't let me upstairs. She's a prisoner in her own home. Fearful of her own son, the friends he hangs out with, the gang members he's around. Terrified. Sad, sad situation all the way around. So we got the coroner to admit that, yes, those could be some symptoms that could occur. The crime scene tech was there and did a horrible job. They didn't look for a cell phone that supposedly Jermaine threw across the room. They never found the cell phone. The cell phone, as a matter of fact, we found after the case was over, the mother still had the cell phone. We are currently working on getting that unlocked and finding out what evidence might exist on that. And I'll tell you about that coming up and some of the things that are going on with that. The crime scene tech looked for, basically they got there, right? You got a guy that says, my brother hit me, I shot him. We got a dead guy, we got a shooter, we got a gun. What more do you need, right? Pretty much open shut case, isn't it, counselor? Dead guy, shooter, gun. What more do you need? In the Detroit Police Department. So we talked to the crime scene tech. He's identifying, some bullet holes or, perceived bullet strikes. I saw all these in the house myself. One I saw had been patched over. It looked like a bullet strike to me. It had been patched over. And then when I got to the trial and saw their actual exhibits, guess what? What he claimed was a bullet strike from that day was the same bullet strike I saw that was still patched over. He says it happened, it was already patched over. It was a pink wall with a little white patched over spot in plaster of Paris. It's old style 20s, 30s plasters of Paris. You know what he called it on the stand? I kid you not. Self-healing plaster. Crime scene tech for like 18 years, and he called it self-healing plaster. Now keep in mind, Terry's the shooter, right? And he just went, excuse me? I mean, right there in open court, goes, excuse me? He goes, can you say that again, sir? He goes, self-healing plaster. He goes, and you've seen this before? Oh, yes, sir. Sometimes the plaster just fills back in around itself. Doggone, where's this stuff at? Where can I buy this? Because I'd like to put that there on the range. I wouldn't have to replace walls nearly as often. What do? I wasn't there as an expert witness to go, he's full of it, right? So here you got a jury uneducated about firearms. You got one guy that gone through a CPL class, hadn't gotten his CPL license yet. And you had another gal on there that actually did have her CPL license, but because she was one of the alternates, that got dismissed at the end. Self-healing plaster. I'm still what? So we had a few other witnesses. We had a few other police officers on the stand. Brielle Brandy was on there the longest, and her testimony back and forth, contradicted itself. Only one juror actually believed her. The other, 13 jurors that were there were like, she's full of crap. It took 2.5 days to conduct the trial. I was expected to be done by Wednesday because they used me as an expert consultant instead of an expert witness. I had 2 extra days. Actually, I had to go out and buy some additional underwear. Like Walmart, here I come. Like I'd only planned on a couple of days here, and I'm bouncing around from friend's couch to friend's couch. It's pretty interesting up there. Had a good time overall. We got down to the end. The jury got the case at 9 o'clock. The judge's jury instructions were excellent. She mentioned the little girl by name probably 15 or 20 times. Mr. Sanderson, a very, very empathetic witness, super nice guy. He, yes ma'am, no ma'am, may I please, do I have your permission to? I mean, you couldn't ask for a better witness. You just couldn't. You couldn't ask for a better defendant. And the trigger for him, he's got some post-traumatic stress disorder obviously going on. He's had some counseling over that. Every time his daughter's name is mentioned in relation to this, he breaks down crying. I was able to give him some techniques to use, tactical breathing. I don't know, maybe you're familiar with post-traumatic stress disorder and some of the breathing techniques that they use in that now. Not very many of you, a couple of you. Post-traumatic stress disorder, basically, you end up, something triggers you and puts you back in the situation where you were at.
Exactly.
And suddenly your autonomic nervous system kicks in and says, I've got to survive, right? And whether it's a smell, whether it's a sound, whatever it is, it puts you back there, and your subconscious mind says, we got to survive. And that's what causes the stress, the anxiety, etc. Because your subconscious isn't your conscious. Your conscious is your thinking part. Your subconscious, all it knows is we're about to die, we got to get out of here. Okay? And so it causes that post-traumatic stress. There are 2 things that you do all day long that you do autonomically. Subconsciously, you do them all day long. One of them is breathing and blinking, right? Now, blinking doesn't do much for you. But breathing, on the other hand, you can bring those 2 things that are done subconsciously under conscious control. And breathing is the one that ties into all of your other symptoms. We're now terming it as tactical breathing. You can even use it inside a stressful situation. But in addition, with post-traumatic stress disorder, you feel that coming on, you begin to breathe. You breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, count of 4. When you begin to do that, you lower your heart rate. You lower your stress level. You've brought it under conscious control. We're using that quite a bit now to help people control those post-traumatic stress disorder type things. I used to use it in arguments with my ex-wife, right? It's great, right? You calm yourself down. You don't want to get as angry. Of course, if she knows that secret, she looks at you and goes, I know what you're doing. Sorry, Liz. Apologies. That's what happens when you're married to a redhead. Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
weren't we supposed to have an attorney here from Firearm Legal Protection?
Well, he was invited, but
Terry wasn't able to. Yeah, he was. I tried to get a hold of him, and he had a scheduling conflict. He's out of town. But I will tell you everything he would have told you. I was working with him on that night. So, or on that occasion. So, we went through all that. We got down to the end of the trial. The jury got it at 9. One of the things about self-defense is this. Was Richard the initial aggressor? Maybe, maybe not. Jermaine came at him quickly, fists, but Richard, not knowing what was going on, having his back turned, immediately grabbed for his firearm. Small disparity of force, not real sure right there, but the point was this, right? Under the law, Richard put his firearm back away. Even if you are the initial aggressor, if you make an obvious sign to make peace, the next thing that happens becomes a new situation. Am I accurate in that, John?
I didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the initial aggressor, if he makes peace, and then after making peace, the other person who was originally the victim then comes after the aggressor, they become the new aggressor in a new situation, correct? Under the law?
Yeah, I would think it would be what kind of time occurred between, I mean, if you're talking about I made peace for a half a second, I don't think that would work. But if there was a span of time that was, I mean, ultimately, you have to a jury to decide if there was a span of time that was long enough to really legitimately
Which is
create a second episode.
Is exactly it. It's a matter of how much time there is in between that. Richard never wanted to fight anyway. He tried to make peace. Jermaine came after him, struck him after that initial peace was made, and then the rest of the situation happened. The jury couldn't connect the dots there. They had a hard time with that. Because of that, he was charged with open murder, second-degree murder, the lesser-included charge of manslaughter, and felony firearms. They ended up convicting him of manslaughter. Because he got convicted of manslaughter, he also got felony firearms. Automatic 2 years, non-negotiable, nothing you can do with that. The standard sentencing for manslaughter is 27 to 56 months. And they asked for that standard. He's never been in trouble before. Richard's never had a criminal charge before in his life. Nothing. He also, by the way, the other caveat in this is he's not an American citizen. He's Jamaican, and he was in the process of getting citizenship. In fact, he was probably just a few months away from getting citizenship when this happened. So for him, a felony conviction really is a life sentence, because as soon as he's done with his felony conviction, he never sets foot on U.S. soil again. He gets flown right back to Jamaica. So he ends up getting convicted, and the judge, even then, the people asked for remand. The judge is so sympathetic with the case, she asks, what's his bond? $25,000. He's not even a U.S. citizen, and she says, we're going to continue bond. They then look at a sentencing date, and it ends up, because of scheduling conflicts, he ends up with 6 weeks' worth of freedom. Gets to put his house in order, gets to put his affairs in order, and we start finding out some other things. The mother actually ends up calling in and telling a family member and says, we found a gun upstairs afterward, and I had your cousin come over and get rid of it because I was afraid I was going to get in trouble. You destroyed evidence? Are you kidding me? Oh. So we have the phone call. We have some affidavits from a cousin. One of the jurors, when she found out that information afterward, was willing to sign a statement and said, had I known that, I wouldn't have convicted. I would have held out. We also have the cell phone. We talked to the judge the day of sentencing, and she prolonged the decision on the motion, but we made a motion for a new trial. That'll be heard on November 4th. The sentence, he still got sentenced that day, so he's currently in prison. The sentence that day, instead of doing 27 to 56 months for the manslaughter and 2 years for the felony firearms, she couldn't do anything with the felony firearms and got 2 years for that. But she lowered the sentence for probation, or for the manslaughter so much that he's eligible for probation as soon as the felony firearms charge is done. So he'll do 2 years in prison, that's it. The key thing is if you get a new trial, then that entire thing gets set aside. It's like he was never found guilty. You do run the risk of a new jury, new trial, and now you could get convicted of first or second degree murder again. It's third trial. So there's some risks to be run. Like I said, he is a super, super great guy. Good Christian fella. Kind of funny. When he got done with his first trial, one of the jurors came out and handed a note. Now they have 6 by 9 inch notebook paper, notebook pads that they get to take notes on. She had it all folded up, and on the outside were 2 crosses on either side of this folded up note. She hands it to Richard's attorney and says, please give this to your client. The attorney goes to put it in his pocket, And Richard holds out his hand and says, excuse me, give me the note, right? And the inside of the note is written Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and all thy ways acknowledge him. Lean not into thy own understanding. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Underneath that, it says, we'll be praying for you and your family. Underneath that, it says, get a better lawyer. And it says, contact the United States Concealed Carry Association. USCCA, pretty good stuff. I like FLP a little bit better, but USCCA, good stuff. They got a great list of lawyers to recommend. So they went online, they looked at USCCA, and there was 8 lawyers in the area. So they took all their names and put them in a hat. Shook them all up, and he had his wife draw out a name. And she draws out the name, Jim Mikowski. Now, Terry Johnson is not on the list of lawyers for the USCCA, just Jim Mikowski is. But Jim and Terry work together. They're like the dream team. So they put Jim's name back in the hat. They shake it all up again. And he has his son draw out. And his son draws out Jim Mikowski. And he's like, this couldn't really be accurate, right? I mean, Gideon had to put the fleece out twice, right? So they put it back in the hat and they shake it up again. And he reaches in and he pulls out Jim Mikowski. Now, I don't know about y'all, whether you believe, don't believe, but look, somewhere there's got to be some providence in there. This guy's a good Christian fella. The day he got convicted, the lawyers came to me. They said, hey, look, he's got some paperwork, and his mom was having a medical issue. Look, she's so stressed, guilty, and everything else. She's diabetic. She didn't eat that day, and she went into a diabetic shock. Had to call the ambulance, the whole ball of wax. I rendered aid the best that I could with what I had there at the courthouse. The attorneys handed me paperwork, said, look, nothing good comes of us staying here. It's not like bedside manner. They said, the only thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to get angry at us eventually, so we're out of here. Can you help him with this paperwork? Like, I'm not sure I'm getting paid for that, but all right, fellas, I guess I will. Basically, I had to go down and get him DNA swabbed because he's now a convicted felon. So as soon as we knew his mom was all right, they were closing pretty soon. I said, Richard, I got to get you downstairs. So we go downstairs, go to the sheriff's office. They'd already closed on a Friday, but they actually brought a deputy back. Great fella. Bring the deputy back, and the deputy they get to talk, and the deputy's obviously a good Christian fella. And he says to the deputy, he says, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm sure that God has a purpose, and there must be souls that need to be saved in prison. This is a guy that just got convicted and is going to prison. I have never seen such poise in all my life. I also had the opportunity to ask him the question. I said, Richard, I want to ask you this question because I need to know. You've been convicted. We've gone through the trial. At this point, it doesn't matter. I need to know the answer to this question. Had you known 18 months ago, on November 30th, 2015, when you did what you did, if you had known that today you were going to be convicted and go to prison, would your decision be the same? He said, yes. He said, I could not risk my little daughter getting killed. I said, if your answer is yes, then you did the right thing. If prison was secondary in your mind, then I don't care how the trial came out, you did the right thing. If you honestly and reasonably believed in your heart that your brother was going to kill you, that your daughter was going to be injured or killed, you did the right thing. You're going to be out in 2 years, you'll still be alive. Your daughter's going to live and grow up. If you couldn't risk it, then there's no question about it. As I said, he's looking at maybe getting a new trial. We'll know that on November 4th. I say all that to say all this. I learned a lot. I learned about jury selection. I learned about how the trial goes, how much the judge has influence, or quite frankly, he got the best judge you could ask for. It could have gone a lot worse for him. You know, objections could have been overruled. Different rulings could have gone against him. It could have been a lot worse. The jury afterward wanted to talk to the defense attorneys, brought them back into the room, and actually told the defense attorneys, if there had been a lesser charge than manslaughter, we would have chosen the lesser charge than manslaughter. We didn't even want to convict him of manslaughter, but that was the least thing available to us. We believed he was guilty of something. We're not even sure it was manslaughter. There's just nothing less than that. Overall, the whole thing in my mind was tragic. Look, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have $50,000 sitting in a bank account somewhere to defend myself. Do I think I'm probably pretty good in Calhoun County? I think I got a better jury pool. I think I got a great prosecutor. I think I've got a prosecutor that probably can tell self-defense from not self-defense. But does it get murky if it ends up being family members? Thank God I have great family members, right? I don't have to worry about my brothers. We've already said, look, friends don't shoot friends with hollow points. It's a joke, seriously. Okay? So, but what if you do have those family dynamics where you got some issues? How's Thanksgiving gonna go, right? That can get a little murky. I want something that's gonna be there for me. And I actually, because you told me that last time people got upset, I didn't actually bring applications with me. I got stuff for firearms legal protection. If you want to stop by the shop, more than happy to get you signed up. Right now, till September 30th, you can sign up for firearms legal protection. There's no setup fee. It's strictly $9.95 a month. I have it. I wouldn't be without it. I've actually got the premium. I've got $18.95 a month. It covers me anywhere in the nation, and it covers me for all kinds of stuff. Not only legal fees, unlimited legal fees, John Sullivan. Right? Unlimited legal fees. Wouldn't you love to have a client that unlimited legal fees and you're guaranteed to get paid?
Right.
Because they pay you directly. They don't pay me. They're going to pay you. Wouldn't you be happy to be getting paid for once?
I think I've been getting paid.
Have you getting paid a little bit? Okay, good. Okay? Absolutely. Okay? Unlimited attorney's fees. Now look, that might not seem like a lot. And that's fine, right? If you're, it's a local self-defense shooting. What happens when it makes national news?
Yeah.
There you go.
What happens when suddenly it makes national news? And now your life is ruined and you're talking about millions upon millions of dollars in legal fees. What happens when it makes national news? And look, just Joel, local expert witness isn't good enough. You need Mossad Ayub. Okay? So the premium pays for self-defense, for attorney's fees, pays for expert witnesses, and you want an expert witness that's got the time to go around and interview every witness in the case. That's going to be able to review all the evidence and look at it from top to bottom. Private investigators might be necessary. All kinds of stuff. You need that. Okay? What about scene cleanup? Right? Most self-defense shootings happen in your home. You want to go to jail for the night and then come home and you have to clean up. I mean, they're going to take the body with them, but they don't take...
The trail left behind.
Right, I want somebody that's going to come in and make it like it never happened, right? They're going to get ServPro in there for you. Now, that's after the investigation's done. This is not like John Wick where he calls up and goes, service for 4, please. Okay? This is after everything's done. Okay? They're also going to make sure that, look, everybody in here, I think I recognize just about everybody in here. Normal, law-abiding, moral, God-fearing citizens. You shoot somebody, you're not the same after that. Right? They recognize that. They pay for up to 20 sessions at $125 a session for counseling. You're going to need to talk to somebody because this isn't a natural act. You're going to need that counseling. They're going to cover you up to 10 days worth of lost work, $250 a day. Right? You got a good attorney. We got pretty decent laws here in the state of Michigan. We got Castle Doctrine. So on the whole, if we've got a reasonable attorney, you shouldn't miss too many more than 10 days worth of work. They're going to cover you. They pay that. And then your firearm, right? You ever notice how hard it is to get firearms back from the prosecution, from the prosecutor's office and evidence? They'll give you your car back. Guns, not so much. If you can't get your gun back within 1 year, then they will write you a check for up to $1,000 for the value of your gun. Isn't that awesome, right? First of all, I as a gun dealer appreciate that. I'll be happy to get you a new gun. Okay? But secondarily, right? I always thought to myself, man, I'm not sure I want to shoot the bad guy with my Kimber. I might not never get my Kimber back. Plus, even if they take it down to evidence, they're going to bang it around, smash it up. I'm not sure I like that idea. I'm not sure I have that much respect for the bad guy. I think I'll shoot him with a high point. Just kidding. Okay? These are some things to think about. Bail. What about bail, right? This guy had to have $25,000 to get out of jail. I'm telling you, firearms legal protection, $250,000. If it takes up to that much, they'll pay that much to get you out. Up front. Now, that's my kind of thing right there, because, look, I got no problem going to jail. I just don't want to stay in jail, right? I'm a little particular about my cuddle buddies. And he's about 6 foot and hasn't had a shower in a while, and his name's Bubba. You know, I'm a short guy. I don't think I'm going to get Big Spoon. I'm probably going to get Little Spoon, and that won't work out well. Okay? You don't want that. I don't want that. Jail's not a comfortable place to be. Now, I don't want you to be scared to go to jail. How many people in here are scared to go to jail?
It depends on the
You,
situation.
look, don't be scared to go to jail. Jail's nothing. Okay? Lots of people go to jail.
Prison would be different.
Bingo. Prison is what I want you to be terrified of. If you are scared to go to jail, you're going to do too much of this. I want you to be terrified of going to prison, so you'll do this and keep your mouth shut. Name, rank, serial number. It's about all you need to give. My name is, I'm a concealed pistol licensee. I'll have my firearm put away wherever. I look like this. You can give scene-based information, right? I'm wearing jeans, black t-shirt, whatever the case may be. Okay? My firearm's going to be placed in the holster, in the front seat of my car, wherever. It's cleared. I need police and ambulance here. There's been a shooting. That's about all you need to give. Hang up the phone. 911 wants to insist. Hang up. They don't need any more information than that. The police get there. What do you say to the police?
Name, rank, and serial number.
About name, rank, and serial number. Now, let's give them a basic framework, though, right? What's your justification, right? You need justification for having used lethal force, correct? So what's justification for the use of lethal force? You have to be in fear of death, right? I need my life protected. I was afraid of dying. Great bodily harm, right? Which means slashes that require sutures, puncture wounds, broken bones, interior bleeding that could lead to death, right? Kidney punches, and anything that can cause serious permanent disfigurement, right? I.e., you don't get to make me ugly. So I get that in before somebody else did. Right? If you're trying to pull a Mike Tyson on me and bite my ear off, I can shoot you for that. You don't get to do that. Okay? That's serious bodily injury. And then the third one is what?
Defense of an innocent.
Well, the same three things, but sexual assault, right?
Oh,
Fear of death, serious bodily injury, or sexual assault. Okay? Those are the three things. And I can do that for myself or for a third party, whether it be your spouse or, even Dean, right? If it looks like Dean's about to get raped, you can shoot. It's going to be a fella, Dean. Don't get all excited. Right? Okay? You can do that. Those are the three things. So, the officers arrive. Then what did you see or hear or experience that made you afraid of one of those three things? Officer, I saw, I heard, somebody grabbed me, whatever. And I was afraid of. Now articulate what you were afraid of. Okay? That's the last time I want you to use the individual article I. It is hard to describe a situation without using the word I, isn't it? We're terribly self-centered people. We say I all the time. Okay? I saw or I heard or experienced. I was in fear of one of those three things. The next phrase out of your mouth is, the results are what you see. End of story. I am no longer claiming any actions. I'm not going to give that to them. I can't, for one thing. Under pressure, stress, and duress, your mind is not capable of making a statement at that time. Do you know how long officers get to make a statement when they're in an on-duty shooting? Anywhere from 72 to 96 hours. Standard operating procedure. They get 3 to 4 good sleeps. Why do they get 3 to 4 good sleeps? Because studies have shown that it takes that long for the chemicals that are dumped into your system to clear out of your body for you to make a reasonable and reasoned statement and to remember everything and recall everything the way it happened. You cannot physically do it before then. They don't even try to make an officer do that. They give them 72 to 96 hours, and then who do they get to have with them? Their attorney and their union rep. Standard operating procedure. Why do they get that and you don't? The answer is you do now, right? You just got told that. You know they get it. Look, if an officer keeps questioning you, he's going to ask you questions. Once you say that, he's going to ask you a question. He's going to go, Wayne, I can't even imagine what you must be experiencing, what you must be going through here right now. As a matter of fact, you know, I've never had to use lethal force, but I've had colleagues that have had to use lethal force in the line of duty. I've watched what has happened to them afterward. The emotional experience is devastating. And, you know, at this point, it looks like pretty clear-cut self-defense to us, but standard operating procedure, what I'm going to need to do right now is go ahead and get a statement from you, so why don't you go ahead and tell me what happened? How do you say no to that? He didn't even put up the big light and go, where were you on October, right? Right? He's not doing the whole questioning thing, you know? How do you say no to a nice guy? And yet, the first words out of Wayne's mouth need to be, Officer, I don't mean to be difficult right now, but I really think I need to speak to my attorney. Now, the officer's not necessarily going to like that a whole lot, right? He's a trained investigator. His job is to get you talking and keep you talking. And immediately he's going, whoa, Wayne, maybe you misunderstood. We don't think you're in trouble here. I mean, you know, honestly, you know, it's been my experience that bad guys want to get a lawyer right away. Anytime I've dealt with a good guy, they always want to tell me what's happened and want me to, you know, to be able to help them out as much as possible. All I'm trying to say is it's a standard operating procedure for us to get a statement. That's all I'm trying to do is help you get through this. Now, did he ask another question?
No.
No, he didn't. He made a statement, didn't he? Sounded like a question. Sounded like Wayne should be saying something. And Wayne's going to look at him again and go, Officer, I don't mean to be difficult, but I think I need to speak to my attorney right now. The officer may do one more thing, and he may look at Wayne and go, look, Wayne, you are not in trouble right now. It's just a standard operating procedure. But if I don't get a statement like I'm charged to by the prosecutor, and why is it that they're charged by prosecutors to get statements? Because we live in a 24-hour news cycle, right? The prosecutor needs to have a statement so he can tell everybody what happened. He's an elected official. I need to act like I'm doing something. Right? That's, again, why it's good to have a good prosecutor, not good to have a bad prosecutor. So he looks at Wayne and goes, look, if I can't get a statement right now, I got to follow my next standard operating procedure, and that means I got to take you to jail. And I really don't want to have to take you to jail because I don't think you've done anything wrong here. Well, that was a pretty thinly veiled threat, wasn't it? Okay? And again, Wayne's going to look at him. Only this time he's not going to say, Officer. What he's going to do is he's going to look at him and he's going, Sir, let me ask you a question. If you were involved in an on-duty shooting, how long would you get before you had to make a statement? Now, the officer knows that you know, that he knows, that you know, that he knows, that he knows, that you know, that he knows, that he knows, that you know, that he knows, he gets that long. Right? And now suddenly it's not suspicious, right? Like you're the bad guy, you've done something wrong. Now he's going, oh, this guy has training. It's important. Okay? It is important to protect that initial interview because Richard made a statement that night, 4 hours after it happened. Terrible. Was it the truth? Sure. Was it the whole truth? There were some holes missing. Okay? I guess my message to you guys is, make sure you guys got yourselves covered. Maybe you're independently wealthy, you got plenty of money. Great, fantastic. If you don't, if it were me, me, personally, I have firearms legal protection. I'm doing it. Whether it's that, United States Concealed Carry Association, whatever it is, you make sure you have something that covers you financially. It's worth it. $10 a month, 30 cents a day. Right? Even if it's $20 a month, you're still less than $1 a day. It's less than the price of a cup of coffee. Now, isn't that how everybody sells everything?
Does it also cover your spouse?
If you want to do your spouse's, I think it's $34.95. It covers you, your spouse, any minor children, right? And you still have minor children, right? Sure, because you're what, 25? Go with it. It's part of my charm. And it covers you anywhere in the nation. right? They got a network of 1,200 lawyers nationwide vetted. They all have a minimum of 5 years trial experience. They're not the kids fresh out of school. Look, if I got a choice between the guy that just graduated law school and John Sullivan, I'm taking John Sullivan every single time. He knows his way around the legal system, right? And you've been in Cal, what's your bar number, John?
Starts with 3.
Starts with a 3. You've been around a while, right? So he's been practicing law almost as long as you've been alive, sir, 25 years.
Second question.
Yes, sir.
I'm a pilot.
Yes, sir.
What happens if I land in Illinois?
Illinois, you're good as long as the firearm stays inside the vehicle and doesn't exit that aircraft. Right? But don't land in New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts. Those red states you want to stay out of on the whole. Illinois gave us half reciprocity.
Third question. How does Dean Greenblatt figure in on this?
Dean is probably one of the, if I were to choose the 3 top attorneys for firearms legal defense in the state of Michigan, it would be Jim Mikowski, that do regular concealed carry type stuff. It would be Jim Mikowski, Terry Johnson, and Dean Greenblatt, not necessarily in that order. Dean Greenblatt's been up to the legislature several times with myself and a couple other guys that do a lot of legislative lobbying. He made a visit with us here a year or so back to the Attorney General's office. He's pretty sharp. Yes, Jim.
Do yourself a favor, get yourself a 2015 National Geographic. Almost 1/3 of the magazine was dedicated to marijuana and its side effects.
Oh. Wouldn't be
And they're
surprised.
not good, and they're not pretty.
No. It's got some benefits. Like anything, it's got drawbacks.
What about the NRA insurance they just started?
The NRA Carry Guard pales in comparison to firearms legal protection. It's not as good as the United States Concealed Carry Association. I know where the NRA is going with it. They want to be competitive in that market. They saw that a lot of places were growing, and quite frankly, NRA missed the mark. I love the NRA for what they do. I'm a benefactor, lifetime member, the highest level of lifetime membership you can get. And they do a great job legislative lobbying. Chris Cox, as head of NRA ILA, is fantastic. Nobody will denigrate the fact that they're the 900-pound gorilla on the block, and I need them. But there are some things that they could be doing better that they have not focused resources on. That, quite frankly, if I were a member of the board of directors, I'd be getting them to focus on that.
I'll tell you
Training department would be one. The Carry Guard rollout could have been a lot better.
I'll tell you one thing, I'm a member of the NRA, so I looked into Kerry Guard, I don't have a computer, so they won't take you. If you don't have email address.
Yeah,
But you could call firearms
Pardon?
legal protection, now you're on the phone and they,
Yeah, I was kinda hoping that guy'd be here tonight, but I guess
I will get your name and address, sir, and I will follow up with you, and I'll get you the information you
I
need.
don't think he was here tonight though.
Pardon me?
I sucked John into coming down here,
Well, now,
so he could get a chance to talk to this guy.
well, it's okay, we're good.
I will get you in contact if you want to, John. I will follow up with you, sir, for
I
sure.
already joined it.
Did you join the Firearms Legal
Yeah.
Protection?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Did I understand you correctly, Joel, that we could stop by the store and you have the forms there?
I do, absolutely. Love to have you guys.
I'll do that.
You have a little $9.95 book that he puts out?
I do.
He needs one.
I will make sure he gets one.
I'll give you the $10 right now to make sure.
You don't even have to give me $10 for John. I give it to him for free. John's helped me out several times. John and I have in fact, we worked together on a case several years ago. In fact, you remember that case with Adam Yancer, where he got, sorry Adam, I didn't mean to say your name out loud, but it's done now.
In Panera's parking lot?
In Panera's parking lot, where back when open carry was still kind of, and Adam was open carrying, it was his own employer. He had open carried into his employer's place of business. They didn't care. The state police happened to be eating lunch there. They watched him. He went out to his vehicle. He went to his trunk, and he got into his trunk, and he pulled out his safe. And instead of just pulling his firearm out in the parking lot, he got back into his vehicle, and at the same time he did that, was going to put his gun into a safe. His girlfriend called. Ex-girlfriend now. Currently my girlfriend. That's why I helped him out. I owed him one. At any rate, but he lifts his leg up and closes the door. When he closes the door, it's concealed carry. Didn't matter that it wasn't on a public street. Didn't matter it was in a private parking lot. The law was the law. And they charged him with a 5-year felony. And we went over that backward and forward. I remember at the time, John, and we were having a hard time through that. Adam had done 4 years in the military. He was Navy, had a clean record. I ended up calling the prosecutor at the time, who was not David Gilbert. It was the previous prosecutor. And she ended up, she was not going to get rid of the charge altogether because state police were pushing for it hard. But she did reduce it to a misdemeanor, failure to register a pistol or something I think she went with. And he just recently, this last year, I helped him go through the expungement process and got that expunged. So he now has a CPL license again. He was in the process of getting a CPL. He'd taken a class, he just hadn't had money to file for the license yet. So the crazy part was they charged him with a crime, with a misdemeanor crime, that still allowed him to carry open. It's a misdemeanor. He could still carry open after that. But because it was a misdemeanor that prevented him from getting his concealed pistol license for 8 years, he couldn't get his concealed pistol license. So exactly what you wanted him to do, he couldn't do, and what you didn't want him to do, you forced him to keep doing. Oh, it hurts your head to think about things sometimes. I don't know how you do it. Maury?
Maybe I missed it, but when you were at this trial, were you ever called on the stand?
I was not called on the stand. I was in the background, and every time Terry was asking a question to the witnesses, I was paying attention. I was looking at the exhibits, and when I picked up on something, I immediately called Terry over, and he, excuse me, Your Honor, one moment, Your Honor, and we'd all huddle up, conference. And the jury really got into that. The jury afterwards said they liked that a lot. They felt like he had a team, like he had somebody that was on his side, and they liked the impression that gave off that we worked well together. And we did. I mean, there are times where I said, hey, Terry, don't forget to ask this question, because she's boxing herself into a corner right here. Jim?
Switch gears on you for a second. Michigan's new law on concealed carry for not having to go through the forms, trainings and stuff like that.
You're talking about permitless concealed carry.
Permitless concealed carry.
Has passed the House. It is currently in the Senate, and it has gone where bills go to die. And last week to MLive, the Senate Majority Leader Arlen Meekoff gave an interview and said it is not time yet for permitless carry in the state of Michigan. Whether that means that they don't believe they have enough votes in the Senate right now to get it passed, or they don't believe the governor is going to sign it, he's sitting on it right now. Does that make Senator Meekoff pro-gun, anti-gun? Look, you're going to have to make your own decision on that. I know that there's political realities, and sometimes we as ordinary citizens, and when we want our rights all the way, sometimes we don't see some of those political realities that have to be faced in trying to get legislation through. As Wayne will attest, he's been doing that for years. He took me under his wing years ago. I've seen those kind of things go on, and sometimes you face that stuff and go, okay, I need to wait a little bit on this until I've got something that the governor maybe really wants, and I go, look, you really want that, I'm going to pass this first, you sign this, and then we'll get this through to your desk.
On a similar note, what about spring-operated knives?
Spring-operated knives are now legalized. It's been signed, and they are legalized as of October 1st.
Automatic knives?
So automatic knives will be legal. It used to be they were only legal for police officers and one-handed men. Well, if you only have one hand, you got no way to open it. I had a buddy of mine that only had one hand. He was excited when he heard that. He went right out and bought an automatic knife.
So the governor signed off on that?
He did sign off on that. He signed off on that in July. It was 90 days. So anyway, the effective date is October 1st. Yeah. So.
Well,
For shame, for shame. So yeah, that will become law October 1st. Another thing that's going to be interesting is legislatively coming up is October 10th. We'll be going to the House, and there will be a subcommittee meeting on the getting rid of registration of handguns. Now, if that, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that one I want, and I want that one bad. That one, and constitutional carry, yeah, I'd love to have that. I'm shooting for the moon. But I would love to be rid of registration, and I would be love to be rid of concealed pistol-free zones. There is an interesting twist on that one. Bo Lefebvre, representative from Upper Michigan, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But Bo Lefebvre, and this guy is fantastic. You want to talk about a conservative's conservative. And sarcastic, too. Myself, I tend to be a little fluent in sarcasm. I speak his language. And he introduced a bill that takes a reverse on getting rid of concealed pistol-free zones. It actually leaves them in place. And so it introduces, and what it does is it goes for permitless carry. And it says if you don't have a permit to carry a concealed pistol, you can't carry in these places. And then underneath that, where it says you can't carry in these places, it says unless you have a concealed pistol license. So if you get the concealed pistol license, then you can carry in those quote-unquote sensitive places where we feel like you should have some more training.
Exactly.
So, on the whole, I'm kind of okay with that one.
When is that coming up?
That has been introduced. We haven't had a chance to debate it yet, but we will go after that. That one's, I'm excited about that one.
It was sent to judiciary.
Yeah, and at
So
least
that's a
judiciary has a
friendly
chance of moving. The House, I think, is pretty favorable at this point toward firearms. The Senate, I'm not sure you're going to be as successful. Of course, your odds are better, right? You have more representatives. You have 114 representatives, I believe, and you only have 37 senators. So
But there's,
one person in the Senate has a lot more power than one person in the House. Any other questions? It has been a pleasure speaking to you tonight. I hope that what I've shared with you has enlightened you a little bit about the legal process and what to expect if you're actually in a self-defense shooting. Some of the things that are going to go on, preliminary hearings. It's a process. It took this guy a year and a half to finally get to the trial. It took him a year the first time, another 6 months after that. So there is a process involved. There's this cloud hanging over your head. He's a great guy. In fact, his job, I kid you not, his job, even after he was charged with open murder, didn't fire him.
Wow.
His job, after he was convicted for 6 more weeks, let him continue working. And the day before said, how long is your sentence going to be? And was thinking about holding his job for him. That's how good a guy this guy was. So, and that's a wrap. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you being patient and listening. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you soon.
Excellent.
well, like I say, I was been fascinated by this whole subject matter, and could be continued, it sounds like, after
Dean
November.
Greenblatt is a good friend of mine.
So
He's in Bloomfield Hills, that's where
I'm gonna try and keep paying attention to this whole idea here, and we know that inevitably there'll be other cases similar. And like when Terry Johnson was here the last time, he went through just hypothetical scenarios, and then of course offered the subscription to firearms legal protection. I got a few phone calls and a couple of emails harassing me about letting somebody offer a product at our meeting, and I tried to tell everybody ahead of time that was going to be done, and nobody was under any obligation at all to purchase that. And of course, I don't make any commission. We don't get any kickbacks to our group here or anything like that. It's just, after I've heard of a couple other people that had to go through that and how much it cost them, I see this service as almost doing you a favor. So I don't want to be without it. So, and personally, I recommend it, but I don't want to see it a requirement.
It's worth the sleep.
But
It's worth the sleep.
well, we buy insurance for our house to protect it from getting burned, but we hope we never have to use it. But I know my house insurance costs way more than a couple $100 a year. And insurance on my car, I haven't made a claim to the insurance company in years, and it costs me several $100 a year for insurance on my car. It just doesn't make any sense to be without this, because if I do have to use my self-defense tool for defending myself or my wife, or maybe it's somebody I don't even know all that well, but is obviously an innocent under attack, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do something about it, and I knew I could. Morally, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do something. That's, I think, a big reason why a lot of us carry anyway. I mean, there's too many bad guys that don't bother to get a license, and, you know, I'm not trying to be a policeman, but for Pete's sake, I can be a decent citizen.
Isn't probably these insurance companies that cover what you're talking about with the firearm protection have a booklet or some kind of guideline on what you do?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
So they're gonna, right from the beginning, they're gonna guide you in the
Right.
right
Yeah.
thing.
Well, that was a big part of Mr. Johnson's presentation too, and you know, Joel touched on a lot of it. You know, don't give out any more information than you have to. And you know, they give you a little fob for your keychain, and it's got the number to call. And he says,
You got immediate access to a lawyer, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Which means as soon as you make the phone call, you're talking to a lawyer, so privilege kicks in.
So you call 911 and then them? Or
You call 911, get police and ambulance there, say very little, and then call them.
yeah.
And they're going to tell you, don't say anything. Wait till we get there. We have somebody on the way. Last time Terry Johnson went, he missed his client by 5 minutes, went down to the police station. He had gotten booked in, and they booked him right back out. He never saw the inside of a jail cell.
Yeah,
I'll
stuff
tell you
like
one
that.
thing, if you have to pull a gun, you're in trouble off the bat, that's. the whole
Correct.
problem.
Absolutely.
That's a whole damn problem.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a policeman being killed, if you step in and kill a guy, anything else, you're gonna go to jail probably.
Just about. I mean, there's very few cases where it'd be so cut and dried that a policeman or a prosecuting attorney or whatever, even bystanders that are eyewitnesses, are going to agree, well, that guy is absolutely innocent. He was doing everybody a favor. It's very few cases that are that cut and dry. And they almost always end up going to court. There's a few times where it is plain, pure, and simple self-defense or lawful use of firearm, but not all the time. And it's just not worth it to me to take the risk. But anyway, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm just trying to promote what I think is a good idea. So anyway, I guess we'll call it a meeting if all your questions are answered.
AccessVision. Your voice, your community.